So Republican candidate Chris Christie decided to do an interview with Fox News host Howard Kurtz on Sunday. And for some reason, Kurtz decided to ask Chris Christie how he feels about Donald Trump's attacks on Chris Christie's weight. Now, Trump has, of course, taken a lot of shots at Chris Christie, and a lot of them have involved his size. Let's be honest, Chris Christie is not a small fellow. But Chris Christie, you know what? I'll just read it. Here is what Howard Kurtz asked. He said, once Trump started hitting back at you on a number of fronts, he took aim at your weight. What was your reaction to that? Because that's like a totally normal and very serious question to ask in a real interview, right? Like, hey, Trump says you're fat. What do you think? I mean, what a horribly stupid thing to even bring up. And unfortunately from there, things only get dumber, because here's what Chris Christie said. What, like he's some Adonis? Please. So Chris Christie immediately fires back by talking about, hey, look at Trump, he's a fat loaf too. I don't know what his point is. You know what it is? It's like a child. It's a bully on the schoolyard who teases you and makes fun of you. But here's my message to him. I don't care what he says about me. I don't care what he thinks about me. And he should take a look in the mirror every once in a while. Maybe he'd drop the weight thing off of his list of criticisms. I gotta be honest, that's actually probably the best way to handle that situation. Maybe. I think the best thing to do would be to not even address it and to say to Howard Kurtz, like, that was a very stupid question. I thought you were bringing me here to talk policy. Now you're basically goading me into attacking Donald Trump for his physical appearance because he did the same to me. But as I've repeatedly said, folks, this Republican primary is going to keep getting dumber and dumber and dumber, and by God, it keeps getting dumber and dumber. But then the interview went like this, because then Howard Kurtz actually did start asking some real questions. For example, Christie, you endorsed Trump. You actually bragged this past weekend about being the first to endorse Donald Trump. So here's what Howard Kurtz says. Why should people trust your judgment when you stood by the guy, at least publicly? Yes, you criticized him on occasion for 4 years, and only belatedly, now that you're running, say he's unfit to be president again? So Chris Christie, of course, had to kind of backtrack this, and he's like, it's not belatedly. I was saying it after what he said in 2020. We all have different breaking points, Howie. We all have to have a moment where we say enough is enough. That was my moment. And then Howard Kurtz asks, did you wait too long? Christie responds, I don't think I waited too long. I think that the right thing to do is to try to make the person who's in the White House the very best president he can be for the whole country. That's what I tried to do. Turned out that I failed at doing that. So if you want to criticize me for not changing Donald Trump despite my best efforts, I'll plead guilty to that. No, you see, Chris, what Howard Kurtz is trying to do is to say that, okay, you're okay with the trade wars. I mean, even his own economic advisors were like, this is really stupid. He sent farmers into record numbers of bankruptcies here in the United States, but Chris Christie, you were cool with that. You were cool with his handling of the pandemic, right? I mean, because you didn't even, as you said, it was after we started saying the things after the 2020 election that you're like, whoa, it's too much. So you were cool with him letting hundreds of thousands of Americans die. You had no problem with that. You had no problem with the border wall. You had no problem with the kids in cages. You had no problem with him cozying up to dictators around the world. You had no problem with his very fine people statement. You had no problem with the 40-plus women who have accused him of some form of harassment or assault. All of that was totally cool with you. That's what Howard Kurtz was getting at, Chris. So you can sit there and be like, oh, you want to criticize me for not changing? Nobody's criticizing you for not changing Donald Trump. But Howard Kurtz brought up a really good point that you couldn't answer about what the hell took you so long to realize this guy was a dangerous disaster. Because there were warning signs from day one and you stood by him until you thought it was no longer politically expedient for you to do so. Thanks for watching, everyone, and well, here comes the awkward part at the end of the video where I ask you to like, comment, and share, and subscribe for more content from Ring of Fire. Also, you should consider becoming a member for some exclusive content and perks, including early access videos and exclusive videos. Check out the link in the description.